Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, if you want the Ole Miss home team broadcast, tune into SiriusXM channel 190 or on the SXM app. Just search Ole Miss Rebels. Hi, I'm Stephen Willis, along with Bill Flowers, and we're going to talk about what happened last week. We're going to talk about what's coming next week, and we might even talk about Ole Miss going to Arkansas State. How we doing, Bill?
I'm doing well, Stephen. How are you, man?
I am fired up. After seeing Ole Miss put up a 70 burger, I'm in a pretty good mood.
Hold on. Tamper the expectations. It's Mercer.
Listen to this. You've said that a couple of times, and I will say this to you. Lots of teams have played Mercer in the past, or teams like Mercer. Only 3 teams have scored more points in an opener.
Yeah, listen, I agree. And we also won 5 in a row last year. So, I get it.
Yeah. I'm pretty fired up, but the game gets a little bit, competition gets elevated this week. I think it was just named that Corey Platt, Tulane's best defender, will not be playing in that game. He had 15 tackles, 10 solo, had a fumble recovery and a sack in week 1 against USA. He is not going to play against Ole Miss.
Sounds like he's just tired. It sounds like that's what his problem is.
Yeah, that was honestly, I read that. I was like, that's a Patrick Willis stat line.
Yeah. That's a Travis Hunter kind of stats.
Yeah, absolutely nuts. Anyway, before we get into last week and this week, Ole Miss is traveling down to New Orleans to play the Tulane Green Wave. You famously traveled to Jonesboro, Arkansas for Arkansas State. Talk about that road trip going down to the G5.
Well, that was definitely a cultural shock to our team. It was like playing in a high school stadium. You go from playing SEC stadiums to literally a high school locker room. The stadium was already, like a glorified high school, and then they were doing renovations to it, and the field, it was sort of like a junkyard dog. Don't complain, just play. Don't roll an ankle. Don't complain about it. Just play. It was definitely so the stadium was under construction. It was definitely a memory where you're like, wow. There's some stadiums that I will remember, and that was one of them.
Yeah, that was interesting. I think I remember listening to that game. Let's see, when was that? In 2001, maybe 2002.
Is 2000, I think it was 2001. Yeah, it was 2001, my redshirt freshman year.
Okay, because I would have been in the military at that point, in the Navy, stationed in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So I would have stayed up listening to that on broadcast.com, because that was the only way I could hear what was going on from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. That's how I spent that game. You were trying not to roll an ankle. I was hoping my 56K modem would not go out.
Yeah, you didn't miss anything.
Yeah, it's pretty fantastic. I love the fact that we went to Jonesboro. That is going to be one of the things that Pete Boone is remembered by Ole Miss fans moving forward, is the road trip to Jonesboro. I think he's the one that signed that contract. So interesting. The Mercer game. What are your takeaways from the Mercer game? What stands out? What did you like? What did you not like?
So the Mercer game, what I liked was they executed the play calls. That's what they did. They executed it. You're defensively. I'm concerned. I know the stats show that they only had 7 points. I know. I read where Kiffin told our D coordinator that, hey, that first play, we paid you a lot of money, but that's not what we were expecting out of you. Which gave him a hard time. But I thought our defense was on the field, too much, but it's hard to predict when you're playing Mercer. It really is. It's hard. I think that they did everything they were supposed to offensively. I don't think anybody would be surprised about me saying that I'm not a fan of our offensive play calls. And, Jaxson Dart, I think was a little bit of, I think some of the issues he had last year had some to do with play calling. And I don't think that our play calling looked any different than last year so much, but he executed it. He did exactly what he was asked to do. Offensively, we clicked on all cylinders. Trey Harris looks like a dog. That guy, shoot, I think he had 4 touchdowns. His first 3 catches were touchdowns. I felt like Wilkins showed that he's going to be a great, combination with Harris. Williams, as a true freshman, came in, showed that, he'll be able to play. So I felt like we defensively, I am concerned. I just didn't feel like we were able to, give them enough, get in, get out, and just control it the way that I wanted to, like they did offensively.
Yeah, offensively, I have a question that I've been wanting to ask you for about a week. Now, is your problem with the play calling in the offense? Is it because the passing game isn't a progression-based passing game that you understand? Like the RPO and the real quick nature. I'm trying to figure out where the disconnect is there.
Yeah. So if you look at Auburn, you had 21 straight passing plays last year. 21 run plays. 21. I think we were up 21-0. When you can do that to a team and you just bloody them in the torso, you've got to be able to make things happen. Well, we couldn't. And all the passing game is everything's outside. Everything is a long, arduous, let the play unfold. It's not get the ball out of your hand quickly, utilize the middle of the field. If you watched Colorado TCU game, you're going to see a team that takes what the defense gives you. You're going to see where a safety in a corner, they're playing their coverage, and the quarterback understands exactly where the ball needs to go. They're putting them in position. They're calling the plays that the quarterback should hit a quick snap. Take what the defense gives you. When they come up, you make them pay. I don't feel like we utilize the middle of the field. I don't feel like we've utilized tight ends. If you're relying on Jaxson Dart to beat you on the outside, absolutely. Well, you take away the outside. You get in you're talking about really high percentage completion passes. Those are difficult plays. When you have a defensive end crashing in on you, and you take by the time you hit your 5th step, you're having to step up in the pocket and about getting hit in the mouth. That's too long. You got to get the ball out of your hand quickly, utilize the middle of the field, keep everybody inside, and they don't do that. And that's my big pet peeve. I want them to use the tight ends. If you're not going to use the tight ends, use your slot receivers to keep the safeties in the middle of the field. Go get behind the linebackers, utilize that. Don't just play this, hey, look how fun our offense can be. We're going to throw 60-yard bombs. It's just not.
Yeah, I think that Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weiss, they have a tendency to get cute. And they do a lot of 2nd and 3rd level RPOs. Now, if you're trying to do
I will say this. To Kiffin's defense, Kiffin has said that he has been like, I can tell you, there are coaches out there that are amazing coordinators. When they become head coaches, they get distracted and they can't, what got you there was a coordinator position. So the question is when you bring a coordinator in and you hire a coordinator to be a coordinator, that's what Kiffin said he did not want to do, is hire a coordinator in and then cut him off at the knees and not let him do the job that he was paid to do. So Kiffin, I would love to know how much of the play calling is he doing, or is he pretty much saying, listen, I'm letting you do your job. I've been there. I don't want to be handicapped. I don't want to be, you let me to do my thing. So that's the question you've got. It's not so much a Kiffin thing, in my opinion. It's maybe more Weiss. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I think the first game, honestly, and this offense, and we'll call it Kiffin's offense, but it's, it could be Charlie Weiss calling it as well. It's the same essential offense. Yeah. But with Caden Prieskorn being out and Michael Trigg being suspended or whatever he was in the first half, and you had Kyron Heath, who was a first-time tight end, I can see how they were wanting to be safe with him.
Yeah.
Jordan Watkins had over 100 yards receiving out of the slot. So I think whenever the full complement of this team comes into focus, it'll look more like we expect it to look.
And that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that they utilize the weapons in the middle of the field. You asked me what did I see, and it resembled everything of last year. The one play that the first, I think, might have been Spencer's first throw, which doesn't surprise me. He utilizes his tight end up the middle of the field, Triggs. I think he scored, or it was a great pass. So, but I do hope that this offense is able to manage the game. So here's another thing, Stephen. You can't have an air raid in the SEC. Cannot happen, will not happen. You will not win the games you're not supposed to win. 100%. You have to be able to control the ball. If we're saying, hey, we'll put up 50 points a game, but we're going to leave our defense on the field because we can't dink and dunk. You have probably the best running back in college football. You've got to be able to ground and pound when you need to, and then be able to dink and dunk and control it to keep your defense off the field. And then when you need to score, you score. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I think hopefully this year we're going to see that control in our offense that hasn't been there. Yeah.
And in this offense, generally Kiffin, and I'm just, like I said, it could be Kiffin, it could be Weiss. It's the same offense. They usually pick one player, two players that are kind of the primaries, and they feed them. They feed their talent. And is it also possible that the talent that they have picked out this year for what they're going to do and trying to get people the ball is going to be a combination of Quinshawn and Trey Harris?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. But at the end of the day, you're going. I mean, you can't say you're gonna take your outside receiver and your run. I mean, if they're going to pound the ball and then try to open it up with their outside receiver, what opens up your outside receiver is the ability to keep the safeties over the top. And how you do that is by utilizing a Prieskorn, Triggs in the middle of the field, doing play action, and as you do play action, being able to make those quick reads and hit the middle of the field. If you're able to do that, Harris is going to have a monster year. But if they can't do that, then the safeties are just going to be like, well, they don't tight the middle of the field. All they do is throw in the outside. And most of the times they're going to try to do a 5-step drop. They're not going to do anything short. So you're not going to have it's just that's what happened last year. That's why you won 5 straight games and then lost to every team that you were supposed to lose to, because you had an offense that could not take or would not take what the defense gave them.
Yeah, and I think that with Prieskorn being out and Trigg being Jaxson Dart didn't have the benefit of either one of those players.
Yeah.
And Jordan Watkins, he actually did pretty well inside the numbers. Yeah. Jaxson Dart in this game was 7 of 8 and 3 touchdowns inside the numbers. So, but in this game, it was Trey Harris that they were deciding to go to the middle of the field and hit those areas.
And again, I can't take anything from the Mercer. I just can't. Next week, you're going to be able to see it. When you see a team that gets in your face, that's going to make you make quick reads at the line, that's where you're going to see where the real growth has happened. I said it before the game that this is a scrimmage. You're not going to get a lot out of it. You're not going to know who your starting quarterback is until after probably,
Well, Lane
at
Kiffin
least this.
named the quarterback.
Yes, yeah, he did. But
Mm.
even Saban has said it that
Yeah.
this is an ongoing competition. I can tell you right now, Kiffin's not going to say Dart is our starting quarterback. Period. He's not. He's just going to let him do his thing, and it's his to lose. And he wants to see Dart succeed. I think everybody wants to see Dart succeed. But if you get into a situation where you're not doing pre-snap reads, you're not getting the ball out, which again, a lot of that has to do with your coach. Your coach has to put you in place to win. So will they put him in a position to win? I don't think they did that last year. Maybe they did, and he just didn't hit it. But I feel like this against Tulane, they're going to have to reveal who they are offensively, and you're going to get to see how much Jaxson Dart has grown. And so I'm excited to see that.
Yeah, it should be really interesting. And we move on to the Green Wave. You talked about all of that. You just mentioned my podcast from this morning, to where we get to see the next evolution of Jaxson Dart as a quarterback, processing information more quickly, getting the ball out. Maybe the play calls have something to do with that as well, because you want a situation to where you can get the ball out and use them like Matt Corral used Elijah Moore or Kenny Yeboah. We know that is in the system. We need talent we need to be able to see that, because once Alabama happens, we are 3 weeks away.
Yeah.
It's real then. There's no do-overs in that game.
And that's why I'm glad that we're playing Tulane early. I'm glad we're not playing Alabama on a bye. What's killed us in the past is that you play these 3 or 4 games. Ole Miss fan base gets excited. They've played a speed that's not really realistic. It's, it is what it is. And then all of a sudden you have an off week, and you're just kind of, going through the motions. And then all of a sudden you get hit with hypersonic SEC, Alabama speed, and it takes you a half or 3/4 of a game to get acclimated. And so I'm glad we're playing Tulane now. I think it's going to force our offense to show who they are. And I think it's good. I think they need that. They need to put themselves in a situation to have to, battle early, because it's not fair. Alabama's having to play Texas. They're having to put on their big boy pants this weekend. And so, we don't know how good Tulane is, but they're not a team that you can look over. That's for sure.
Yeah, honestly, I would have liked in the schedule if Tulane was the opener and then you play Mercer.
Yeah, that wouldn't be bad, but I also think it's probably not a bad thing to get one more exhibition game under your belt, then play Tulane. Hey, I would rather play Tulane than Texas for your second game. So I think it's a good evolution. I think it's a good step.
Okay, before we get out of here, let's talk about week 1 impressions. Like LSU, all of a sudden the ESPN FPI went from LSU being a 60% probability favorite in that game to Ole Miss being a 60% probability favorite in that game. LSU did not look good.
I can tell you, this was a concern when the first thing that ESPN, they mic'd up Kelly, and the first thing that they show is him talking with his offensive coordinator, telling them that looks like the crowd's going to be overwhelmingly FSU. And the offensive coordinator is like, I really don't care. Well, when your head coach is, first thing he's concerned is, hey, this crowd is going to look like it's all FSU. He even mentioned it coming into the second half, that we got to control the crowd. LSU almost, to me, they gave up. Like, it didn't look like they were competing. It didn't look like a Coach Kelly team this guy eats nails. Everything he's done has been, blue collar, bring your hard hat, lunch pail to work. and it didn't seem. I was surprised. I was shocked to see LSU kind of lay down like that.
You know what it looked like? It looked like Ole Miss versus LSU last year in reverse.
Yeah, I would agree.
Um,
I totally agree on that. So
yeah, and you talk about the Alabama was probably the big winner of the weekend because LSU dropping down. That means that they become the prohibited favorite for the SEC Western Division, but they have Texas. That's a game they could lose if they drop that. I'm telling you, there's probably 3 or 4 teams in the SEC West right now that have a legitimate chance to win this division.
well, I think preseason, and I think as deep as the SEC West is, there's no way to hide. There's no way to kind of get lucky, so to speak. I mean, you have to earn it, and I think LSU losing to FSU, okay, that sucks for them out of conference, but LSU is going to come back, and they got talent. If Alabama loses to Texas, okay, that's out of conference. You're still going to have to play. So there's not a team in the SEC West that is weak, and they are going to week in week out have to go through the gauntlet. So I think losing a game early as non-conference is much better than losing a non-conference game later in the season for your playoff hopes. So if I had to choose, I would much rather lose early than late, and it also kind of gives you a big wake-up call. So this will be Alabama. I mean, Alabama last year was fortunate to have how do you say his last name, Irwin, get hurt, because if he hadn't, Alabama would have lost that game.
Ewers.
And so he would have lost. They would have lost that game because that kid was playing lights out. He didn't. My understanding is that he didn't play hot this week or last week.
Yeah.
And
mentally, they were already playing Alabama when they had Rice on the schedule.
Yeah, and that's what happens. That's what happens. And so, you said, like, what are some of the takeaways that you had against Mercer? They executed what was asked of them, and so Texas didn't do that. And so that's very easy to allow a team to slip up and not play that well, and but Alabama still will be looking for a quarterback. I mean, they're just because this kid won the game, like I'm telling you, Saban has made it clear that this kid's the starter this week, but if he can't execute the play calls that need to be done and puts them in a position to not win the game, he will yank them and he will snatch them. And that's why when you're in a quarterback competition and you want to have a quarterback that is not really looking over the shoulder to see if he's going to get snatched, that's why you want to do this stuff early. And so I think this is Alabama and Ole Miss will probably have a couple more games to figure out who their starting quarterback is.
All right. I'm not sure, but I think your brother went to Tennessee. You went to Ole Miss. How much would you like to see that game this year?
Oh, so my dad went to Tennessee.
Oh, okay.
And my brother went to Duke.
Oh, okay. He had a good weekend too. He's probably crowing like crazy.
Go Dukies! Hey, and Cutcliffe's old stomping ground. So I was happy to. I mean, I was shocked. I woke up this morning and read that they stomped a hole in Clemson.
Clemson did not look good. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I mean, that's not going to help their recruiting. I mean, you have a kid that's on the fence about going to Colorado or Clemson. He just booked a jet to Boulder. I mean, this is not good for college football recruiting for a lot of teams out there right now. They're like, if we don't play like we're supposed to, and there's a kid that's on a fence to go to Colorado, they're going to lose it. So this hurt a lot more than just one way than the scoreboard for Clemson. To get beat by Duke, 28-7.
Yeah, they got It was either 28 or 35, but it was a blowout at the second half. Clemson was another team that let go of the rope.
Yeah, that's not good for Clemson in a lot of ways.
So anyway, thank you very much for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you have your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Thank you so much, Bill, for joining us this week. Look forward to talking to you next week after hopefully the offense evolves a little bit.
Yes, sir. Hotty toddy.
Hotty toddy.